Hello, hello. Welcome to Roll for Question, a stream where a veteran DM offers to answer any questions you have about Dungeons and Dragons. And in the meantime, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be answering commonly asked questions that I see online. These are questions that people, new players, veteran players, go online, they go into forums, they go into Discord, they go into Reddit, they just post these questions, and they're good questions, and sometimes they get good answers, and sometimes they don't. So I'm just going to answer them here. I'm going to start off with a very, very common question that I see. It makes perfect sense. It's the top of mind for a lot of people. What should I play? 2024 D&D, the newest edition, 5.5e, or 2014 D&D, the old edition, 5e? Which is what I should play? And there's several dimensions to that question that I want to touch on. But first, it's not just brand new players asking this question. Everyone's asking this question, and it's a fair question. If you're a new player and you've never played D&D before and you don't know which edition to pick up, if you'd asked this question a year ago, I would have said the 2014 D&D is a good starting point because 2024 is not out yet, and you want to have enough material to work with to play the game. But all of the material for 2024 is out, and there's no reason not to pick it up. Go with the 2024 edition, and you'll have fun, and you're not missing out on anything. And there's no risk of like, I played the 2024 edition, and I really, really, really like this content from the 2014 edition. I wish I had been playing 2014. You don't have to worry about that because all of the 2014 content is easily ported into 2024. So you're not leaving anything behind. The alternative, the on the flip side of that, if you're playing 2014 and you see content in 2024 and you're like, I really want that, it's a little harder to move that content. It's not hard, but it's harder to move that content into 2014. So there's less risk to start out with 2024. I will also say that just in general, this is outside of D&D, but just in general, if you've got a choice between two things, one thing is new, one thing is like 5 years old. They're the same price, they're roughly the same game, roughly the same product. You probably want the newer one, especially if it's like made by the same people. Like, there's a good chance that the people who made the newer edition learned some lessons from the older edition, and it's just a safer bet to go with the new stuff. If you play every edition of D&D, you will find that there is a general improvement overall with like writing and presentation and teaching the game. Even if you're like, man, the first edition of D&D is the best edition. Like, that is not... You might have that opinion, but you can't, in good faith, say that it's the best book. Like, it's the best edited book. Like, there's been definite improvements every edition in D&D, and that's not just limited to D&D. That's everything. Where we wrote something because no one had done this before, and we were just kind of winging it. Versus, like, we've had 50 years of people writing this stuff. We've learned some lessons. So, new players, go with 2024. You'll have fun. It's a good game. You'll enjoy it. You won't regret. If you're not a new player, if you are a veteran player, if you've been playing D&D for a year prior to this choice, you've got a little bit of investment in 2014. Is it worth jumping over? And let me give a disclaimer to this. I have not played 2024 yet. I have looked at the book. It's fine. Like, I don't have any. There are some things that I feel like they did better. Some things they feel like they did worse. But overall, like, if someone were to say, "Hey, let's play 24 D&D," I'd say, "Yeah, cool. Let's have fun." I won't be like depressed by that. But what I will say is, if you're asking the question, should I play the new edition or the old edition? What I would say is stick with what you know until you see something in the new edition that you really want to try, and that pulls you into 2024. And be open to other people at your table wanting to do that as well. So like, if no one cares, just stick with what you know. It's fine. It's still fun. Like it's still a good time. It's still D&D. But if you're like, if someone at the table is like, man, I really want to try New Cleric out, that could be your hook. That could be all the excuse you need to try 2024. But if there's no one at your table who's pulling in that direction, don't jump into a lukewarm, you know? Stick with what's fun. Jump into it when you're excited to jump into it, or when something like pulls you into it. Don't feel rushed either. Like if you're having fun with the existing content, play the existing content. Wait for Wizards of the Coast to publish something that compels you to switch. Don't go looking for an excuse to switch over to 2024. That's what I say. Keep having fun. The time will come to switch over. Be open to it, but don't force it. Traditionally, what happens is that when a new edition comes out, is that a lot of people dive into it because it's new, but a lot of people continue playing the old edition because that's what they know. And it's like, if a new edition comes out but you're in the middle of a campaign, you're not going to stop the campaign. You're going to finish the campaign first, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to switch especially with previous editions where like from 3rd edition to 4th edition is basically a completely different game. You cannot convert a 3rd edition game into a 4th edition game without ruining it. And similarly, you can't go from 4th edition to 5th edition. Same problem. From 5th edition 2014 to 2024, it's a little bit less of that because they're very similar by design. They're meant to be, one is meant to be backwards compatible, but at the same time, it's just easier to finish your game and then switch when you're done. So a lot of people do that. So you're not at risk of like being left behind, and you're not at risk of like, oh, I'm playing an inferior game. Everyone else is having fun, but I'm stuck here playing like last decade's D&D. There's not a risk of that. You have plenty of time to migrate over, and everyone else is gonna take their time as well. So don't force it. Migrate over when you feel something pull you over. When you feel compelled to switch. Don't switch just because like, oh, the new edition came out, so I have to play it. It's not true. Not true. I will get to play it at some point. Maybe that'll change my opinion. But at the moment, I'm not actually playing any D&D. We finished our D&D campaign a month ago. I want to say a month ago. And we've been playing Aliens, which is, it's fun. It's good stuff. It's not D&D. we're not avoiding 2024. It's just D&D is a game, and there are other games, and sometimes you want to play other games, and we'll come back. But for now, not playing D&D. And there's nothing in 2024 that really grabbed us. There's nothing that really said like, all right, we finished up this D&D game and we all feel like playing Aliens, but have you seen the new Cleric in 2024? Like, let's put this, let's reschedule everything to play more D&D. Like, that has not happened. Nothing in the 2024 edition has made anyone crave more. So it's just how it is. We'll come back to it when it's time for our regularly scheduled D&D, which it's usually like one game a year. So I think we'll be coming back to it sooner rather than later. But yeah. Anyway, another question. This one's less common, but it does come up a lot. My players want to make a called shot on a monster. How do I resolve that? Addendum, a lot of DMs will actually instead ask, so my players wanted to make a called shot to like someone's eyes, and I said yes, okay, and I improvised that, as a DM is supposed to do. I said, okay, so I guess the creature is now blind, and they took damage. Great. Now my players are just only targeting the eyes all the time. What do I do? How do I fix that? So the first question is kind of answered by the second question, which is how do you handle called shots? You probably should be very, very cautious about allowing them at all, because otherwise you'll result in the second question, which is I allowed this called shot and I improvised it on the fly. I improvised a game mechanic on the fly, and now my players are abusing the game mechanic because, it was done on the fly and it's not balanced. And I know that now. How do I fix it? The problem with called shots, and I should clarify, the problem with doing called shots on the fly and the problem with just making game mechanics on the fly is that it is hard to do it and nail the balance. Like the first time you make a game mechanic is probably not going to be balanced. Just straight up. Like when you're a game designer, you're making stuff, you're like, I don't know, this guy can have 6 hit points. Is that balanced? You have to get out a spreadsheet, you have to do some math, and you have to get a playtest group out, you have to get some opinions, you have to get some review, get someone else to look at it and tell you like that doesn't look balanced. Have you compared it with there's a whole process to making something go directly from your brain into a balanced shape. And when you're a DM and you're at the table and you're actively like running the game, and someone asks you, "Can I do this thing?" and you're like, "Well, I need to make a game mechanic on the fly." That's a very common thing that a DM needs to be able to do, but you need to be able to give yourself the grace of putting something out that's unbalanced and then fix it. So it's okay if on the moment someone says, so this is a Cyclops, can I shoot him in the eye? And I'm pretty sure that Cyclopses in this game right now have a mechanic for shooting them in the eye, but let's pretend they didn't. Let's pretend that's not a thing, and someone's like, can I shoot them in the eye? And like maybe circumstances are like the Cyclops has, like someone is holding the Cyclops eye open, or like for some reason they can't close their eye. So like it seems especially appropriate that a player might target the eye. So you might go, okay, sure, make an attack roll. Oh, you hit? Okay, I'm going to roll a die. That's a natural 2, so the Cyclops is blinded. It's totally fine to seat of the pants, make a ruling like that, and go, yeah, you did it. This happened. Players will enjoy it. You're having fun. What you don't want to do is you don't want to make that a game mechanic. You don't want to promote that to like, you can do this every time. Like you can always target the eyes and always cause blindness. And I don't know why that's the called shot. Like the example that always comes up, like it just is. It's always targets to the head, targets to the eye. Can I do double damage if I stab him in the back? Like you can do it if it makes sense as a ruling, but you can't do it as a mechanic because it's not balanced. And make sure the players know that like you can do it this time because it's fun, but you can't do it next time because the eyes are like the enemy is guarding their eyes, or like, well, that's what their AC represents. That's what their hit points are protecting. Like that they have, you're always targeting their eyes, but you got to get through their hit points first, and then it's like, okay, what you do if you have made this mistake and you've got players now trying to shoot everyone in the eyes is, and this is anytime you make a mechanic, a rule a magic item, anytime you make a mistake as a DM, what you do is if it's disrupting the game, you pause the game. Otherwise, after the game, you go to the players and you say, "Hey guys, DM talking here. This is out of character. I made a mistake. Can we roll it back? Can I correct? Can I fix?" You have a conversation with the players about what you've done, what the problem is, what you need to do to get the game back in a fun, balanced state. And it's entirely possible that the players will be like, "Yeah, thank you. I noticed that too. I didn't want to say anything because it's weird to complain about it when I'm benefiting from it, but I agree. Like you're making a right call." They might be on your side. They might support you and be thankful that you brought it up. They might fight you. They might push back and say like, "Well, okay, but like it's fun to do that. So can we compromise?" And maybe you work out a compromise, and that's fine too, as long as you are having a conversation with the players out of character. Like that is the right way to get your players to stop abusing a game mechanic that you improvised on the fly. And it is something that is a skill that you build up over time as a DM. So like the first time you do it, like it's scary and you're probably like, it might take a couple of stabs to find a balance, to find a compromise. And the more you do it, the more you kind of recognize patterns that like the players like, okay, the players don't look like they're enjoying it. Like they're doing it, but they don't look like they're enjoying it. So maybe I should step in or like, okay, the players are enjoying this way too much. What if I like give them a bow of shooting enemies in the eye, and then I give that to them so that they can keep doing it, but then I remove this game mechanic that they've been abusing, and then I figure out a way to make this magic item that I made, make it balanced, that kind of thing. Because there is one other way to. If you've got players that are pushing on you and they're like, "Please let me shoot enemies in the eye, please." There is the nuclear option, which is you make enemies that shoot the players in the eyes, the characters in the eyes. Don't do that. I don't recommend it, but it is an option in your pocket. The players will get very upset if you do that, but it might, show them why you need to rein this in. If everyone's just shooting everyone in the eyes constantly, then like, okay, can we tone down the silliness? Can we have an actual narrative? Can we go back to D&D proper? That's the goal. Are there called shot rules that I would recommend? No, I would not. I appreciate making fun rulings in the moment is a DM skill, and I appreciate that, and that is I don't discourage that. But called shots add complexity to the combat. Even in a balanced format, they add complexity to the combat in a way that is not particularly. It doesn't solve a problem in the game. Like how do I put this? The combat, adding options to combat doesn't make it better. Adding ways to, like, if you do X, you'll do extra damage. But Y? Like, that sounds interesting, but it's not really a D&D. It's not something I would staple onto D&D combat, because then that drifts away from what D&D combat is. What I will say is, if it doesn't make sense that I can't shoot someone in the eyes, the whole point of hit points, the entire point of hit points is to act as a sort of stop to what you would consider the natural consequences of combat ruining your character. So you get stabbed. Now, normally when people get stabbed, they bleed out and die, but that's very boring for a tabletop game to have that as a consequence. Like, you get stabbed by a kobold, and then it gets infected, and you get sepsis, and you die in like 3 days. Like, some people might enjoy that. I'm not trying to shame anyone who enjoys that, but the whole point of hit points is to say you get stabbed, so you lose 4 hit points. Okay, then you keep playing. Like, then you heal up. Like you you rest, it goes away. You don't worry about the stab wound for the rest of the campaign. You just move on. Like, cool. It's the same thing. Like, you get stabbed in the eye for 6 hit points. Okay, you still have an eye. Like, eye doesn't fall. You're not blind for the rest of the campaign. Like, that's the whole point of hit points. So, I would point out that everyone in D&D is already aiming for everyone's weak points by default. That's the expectation. And if you want to represent like, well, I'm trying, but now I succeeded. Well, that's what a critical hit is. You know, you've been aiming for the weak point. Critical hit. Oh, you got the weak point. And you know what a critical hit does? Doubles the dice. There's the mechanics. There's your called shots. Everything is a called shot. And crits are like the actual success of the called shot. If that's not interesting, fair, you know. It's not as easy as you think to add called shots to the game. Previous editions of D&D did have called shots. They took that out. And you know what? It's a good move. Because it was like -6 to your hit, but you do +10 damage. It was one of those. The problem with that kind of thing, which is 5th edition 2024 had that with Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Mastery. That becomes a math problem rather than a table at play problem, where you're like, okay, so if the AC is 13 or lower, then it's mathematically better for me to do this option, and if the AC is 14 or higher, it's mathematically inferior for me to do this option. So it stops being a option at the table, and it's a math problem that a calculator has solved. And like, I'm just doing what the calculator tells me to do. I'm doing what the spreadsheet tells me to do at that point. It doesn't add anything to the game at that point, or what it adds to the game is not worth the effort. All right. Here's a question. Sometimes, and this is okay. Here's a question. Sometimes my players want to do crazy things with spells. They want to do spell shenanigans. How do I resolve that? And in particular, this is not limited to illusion spells, but this is especially relevant to illusion spells. The archetypical question that I see is actually the grease spell, which is grease flammable? And if you look in the 2024 spells, they actually solved this, which I firmly disagree with. But it's a funny change they made to the grease spell, because in previous editions, grease didn't specify. Grease was completely non-specific about what kind of grease it was. It's just magic grease. Like, okay, what do you imagine when I say grease? Like, you throw grease onto the floor. What kind of grease? There are many types of grease in real life. Which one do you imagine? And is the one that you imagine, is it flammable? And I feel like that's where this question comes from. Why can't I find the spell? I want to find it. I don't want to spoil what it says. But I'm pretty sure you know what it says. Grease. Non-flammable. It's even the first word in the spell description. It says non-flammable. Literally every other edition of this game did not say that. They added that for grease specifically, which is funny. But here's the thing. If you imagine it's grease, it's actual, like, it's magically conjured, but it's real grease. Is real grease flammable? Not all greases are flammable, which leads to a funny debate about this spell where it's like, grease isn't flammable. Yeah, it is. No, it isn't. It doesn't say it is. Well, it doesn't say it isn't. Well, screw you, and flip the table. Like, okay, this is a classic D&D conversation between two people who, like, should be put in a corner and, like, everyone should ignore, because who cares? But how do you as a DM deal with players who want to do fun things? I shouldn't say fun, but I'm going to say fun. Fun things with spells that are definitely not what is written in the spell. So with the called shots question, I talked about how you need to be careful when you improvise game mechanics, because making game mechanics is a process, And if you don't follow that process, there's a good chance you're going to make them unbalanced. And that absolutely applies to here too, especially with illusion spells. And this is the biggest problem that people run into with illusion spells, where a player is like, can I use an illusion spell to put a bucket on someone's head and make them blind? And you think about it and you're like, I don't see why not. And then you do it. And then you're like, cool, I just given them a better blindness spell than the actual blindness spell. Also, this is an illusion spell, so they can do literally anything else with it. But if you say no, well, why not? Like, you can't make an illusion. You can make an illusion of a bucket, for sure. You can put it on someone's head, for sure. The target believes it's a bucket. They believe that they can't see. So, like, why can't they? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But like, what do you do? You're kind of stuck. And that is part of why I say, like, being able to issue rulings as the DM is an important skill to have. It's important to be able to say in the moment, like, this works this time, but it won't work every time because it makes sense this time and it won't work in the future. And if you want it to work in the future, we can have a conversation about it outside of the game. But I just want you to know that, like, okay, but next time, no. That is a valuable skill to have and something to build up over time, so that when someone says, like, can I what's a creative spell combination that isn't grease and isn't an illusion spell? I'm gonna stick with the grease one. If someone's like, can I put grease down and then can I set it on fire? You can be like, sure. Because if you just say no to everything the players come up with, that has ramifications for the game. And those might be fine for your game, or those might be terrible for your game. But what it does is it encourages the players, shouldn't say encourage, it discourages the players from trying to be creative. It says, hey, anytime someone comes up with a creative thing and you say no, that just slows them down. That just slows that creative process down for them, because now they've got to deal with that mentally. When you're brainstorming, like, you put every idea down to encourage more ideas to come. So some of those ideas will be bad, some of them will be good. You need to have a way to deal with the bad in a way that is less destructive of the good. That's what I'll say. So to get to the question, to actually help new players, how do I deal with spell shenanigans? What I'll say is, for illusion spells, it's okay to say no if it really doesn't make sense. But if it makes sense and you can't think of a reason why it wouldn't make sense, say yes, but preface that with only this time. You can put a wall here with an illusion spell and people will be like, okay, that's a wall, I believe you. You can do that. Didn't work. How am I supposed to get my question? You can just ask your question in chat and I'll answer it, unless that was the question, in which case the answer is ask your question in chat. No, I want to roll for it. I don't have a bot in this channel, so you'll just have to grab a real dice. I could roll one. The title says I can. I rolled a 5. There you go. You rolled a 9. That's better. You did win, so I'll give you that. The question is up to you now. Why are turtles so long-lived? Are they long-lived? Are you talking about in D&D, or are you talking about in real life? That's the 9th question on my mind. I don't know anything about turtles in real life. That is, I'm gonna guess because they're secretly ninjas. That's all I got. Otherwise, I have no clue. You'll have to ask a biologist. I don't actually know any biologists. I actually don't know if there's someone more appropriate to ask either. Like, is there like a turtleologist? Is there an amphibianologist? Is that a thing? Is what is like biologist is a very vague title. What is it, like an animal, like a vet? I don't know if that's marine biologist. Okay, that sounds more specialized. That sounds more specialized. I think that's going to be the right person to ask. I don't know any marine biologists. And then if you're asking in game, I don't think like none of the creatures have ages at all, which is fun. I do find it curious that creatures all have alignments, but they don't have ages. Like, is it useful to have alignment but not age? Relatively short-lived, though. Turtles have ages. I couldn't tell you what the turtle age is off the top of my head. I could also just say, like, I've never seen age ever matter in a D&D game in my life. And I've played in games that have had, like, they're ghosts. They have aging attacks. They make you older by attacking you. I've played traps that have, like, age attack. Like, I've never seen it matter in my life. Like, age like, turtles can live to be 9 billion years. You might as well just say that. It does not matter at all. Like, elves lived forever. Elves don't have age at all. Humans live to be 6, and then they die of old age. Like, sure. It's completely meaningless. I've never seen, maybe not 6, but I think, like, Aarakocra lived to be 30. Like, they have a really short lifespan, and again, doesn't matter. Do you not roll to see if your players get heart attacks like a responsible DM? I have not done that in a long time, no. It is something, once upon a time, when I was a new DM, I used to joke about making people roll to tie their shoes, but that's not the same energy. Sometimes you ask people to roll for silly stuff, but you don't expect it to derail the campaign. And then they roll a natural one, and you're like, well, I guess your shoes explode. Whoops. Have you tried, do you have spare shoes? Because, or like, you're walking down the stairs, roll a dex check. Natural 1, ooh, you fall. Now, anyone listening, don't do that. Like, this is not an example you should follow. It's just things that I have done. Once gave a player appendicitis and had them roll a d4, and they were like, oh, I take 1 damage. And I said, no, that's how many hours until your appendix explodes. Oh, no. Yeah, that's a surprising result. Oh, boy. It was a one-shot. Nice. I mean, it would have to be. Like, you can't come back from your appendix exploding. I got better. I don't technically need an appendix to survive. It's fine. It'll grow back. We have the spells to fix that. Although, if you don't have an appendix, and then someone casts Regenerate on you, do you get a new appendix and then it explodes? Or do you get a new appendix and it's fixed? Like, how does that work? They fixed it? Oh, okay. Nice. Like, I'm sure if someone were to cast Greater Restoration to fix it, I'd be like, yeah, that works totally. I don't think Greater Restoration says it fixes organs, but if someone said that, I'd be like, sure. But, like Regeneration, I don't think it says anything. Like, obviously, Regeneration would give you back organs that you're missing, but would it fix them? The worst thing I've done to players is cast Modify Memory on them without telling them. Ooh, that's spicy. That's especially spicy because, like, do I get a saving throw? Yeah. That spell gives you a saving throw, but you failed it and you forgot. Like, you can't gaslight the players. I had them play through the modified memory instead because they were level 5 and messing with a lich. It's fair. I find that D&D does not do memory modification as well as it claims to. Only because of the saving throw, though. If everything on this game didn't have a saving throw attached to it, if that wasn't like the culture of the spells, like you could get away with some stuff. But yeah, target makes a wisdom saving throw. That is something that you can do with the player's consent. If you're interested in doing that, and you get the players to go in session 0 and say, "Yeah, I'm cool with memory modification and not getting a save," or "I'm cool with memory modification. Give me the save, and I will faithfully act out." Like, you can do that, but it scares me to do that just out of the box. It does concern me. As far as spell shenanigans go, I've completely lost my train of thought. But what I was saying was, just make a rule. Don't be afraid to make a ruling. Say, yeah, you can do it this time. Don't do it again, though. Or you can say something like, it works great this time, but just so you're aware, in the future, they could have done X, or they could have done Y, and they will do X or Y in the future to counter that. So this isn't like you don't win D&D just because you've used minor illusion to become a box and no one investigates boxes in this game. That's not a thing. Like, in the future, they're going to investigate boxes. In fact, I'm just like, you can just say that straight up if you want. Like, the next time you do that, I'm going to roll a d20, and if I roll a 6 or higher, they're going to investigate you. So just so you're like, yeah. Spell shenanigans within reason. Let them happen. Don't be afraid to pull in the reins to keep them from becoming a game mechanic that the players abuse. Keep them into the level of ruling if you can, which means like, it's okay this time. It's not okay every time. It's okay when I say it's okay. That's how you reward the player creativity without letting it take over the game. I feel like minor illusion boxes should give you immunity from spells that require line of sight. You could make that argument. It makes sense. There's no reason it shouldn't. But like, then wouldn't you just do it every time? And you have to ask yourself, like, is that really, do you really want the game to go in that direction? Now, minor illusion is special because unless you're like, it doesn't make big illusions. The illusions are only 5 feet tall. So unless you're like hiding behind them, I don't even think you can make that argument fairly. It doesn't protect you from an arrow. Sure, but like, it's also like, it's still an illusion. You can certainly make someone believe that they don't have line of sight to you. You can certainly do that if you pull off if they don't believe it, or if they believe that that's real. If they believe the illusion is real, like, sure, like, there's a barrel here. There's an illusory barrel here, but you think it's real. You don't think you have line of sight behind that barrel. 100%, fully agreed. But like, if you see an illusory barrel and someone casts, and you think it's illusory, and you can totally cast Fireball on it. Does this need line of sight? I think line of sight is required by all spells, but I think it's perfectly healthy to say like, a minor illusion is not going to stop someone from shooting right through it to hit you. Not all spells. Which spells need line of sight? Like hold person? that you can see within range. I think it makes sense. It makes sense to me that would block line of sight if the target believes that that's an illusion. That's really an illusion. If you see a real barrel there, you can't see behind that barrel. Sure. I think that's fine. Anything with a non-dex saving throw. I agree with that. And I don't think it would be a problem in practice, but if it did become a problem in practice, I don't know how it would. But if it did, you have a fair argument to say, like, if you make an illusion directly in front of someone, they get a chance to recognize it immediately because they saw you do magic and then a thing immediately popped into existence. Like, okay, they're not dumb. Like, is there a conjure barrel spell? I mean, there could be. I'm not saying they automatically recognize it as illusion, but they might get a chance. But that's predicated on the idea that, like, this is even a problem, which I don't think it would be. I think that'd be totally fair to say, yeah, you cast minor illusion, you make a barrel, you can hide behind it. People can't cast a charm person on you. I don't know. They can't cast hold person on you while you're hiding behind a barrel. Assuming that you are hiding. Just standing is not hiding. You need to actually hide, which, yeah. Yo, hey Timothy, what's the subject, brother? Right now we're talking about how you deal with spell shenanigans. How you deal with a player that wants to get creative with spells, including but not limited to illusion spells. Everyone unnecessarily nerfs illusion. I think that's true. I think that's overall true because illusions are very open-ended, and when I talk to other DMs, there's a general fear that illusions are going to get abused if you don't rein them in. If you just say yes to everything, illusions are the best spells in the game, hands down. If you're just like, I would like to put an illusory bucket on someone's head, and they're blind, but also I would also like to put illusory chains around them so they can't move, and like I would like to do a million billion things that like illusion spells are not like. Then illusion spells will just replace all other spells. It's talking about like Phantasmal Force. You'd be like, Phantasmal Force, where is it? Why is it not here? Why is Phantasmal Killer here but not Phantasmal Force? What? Am I crazy? Did they rename the spell? Phantasmal Force. It says that the target believes whatever illusion is affecting them. I have many theories. Anti-illusory rings can smash that up, and also one thing has always done my head in. I hate playing Illusioneers. It's a balancing act to get right, but I feel like if you're not trying to abuse illusion spells, if you're not trying to make them better than every other spell at the same level, it's fine. It's totally fine to use Phantasmal Force to do some crazy stuff. It just shouldn't be better than every other spell at that level. Like, and if it's not, then there's no need to intervene. There's no need to say, hey, stop it. Everyone disbelieves your illusions now. Deal with it. Like, there's no reason to do that. Overall, you can just be like, you put an illusory wall here. All right, the monsters believe there's a wall here. There's no reason for them not to believe that, unless you give them a reason. It's not doing anything that, like, I don't know. Suggestion is probably actually a bigger bugbear for DMs than illusion spells. The suggestion spell is that's one that starts internet arguments. I once tried to do major illusion to create a fog cloud the team could see through. The DM disallowed it. Was that be like in combat, or would that just be in general? Like in a we're sneaking through this area and we put an illusory fog cloud up in combat. That one's tricky. I don't want to. I would need more context before I would judge your DM on whether that's a fair ruling or not. Because in combat, that's basically that's better than darkness. It's a 3rd level spell. It should have effects. I mean, it definitely has effects. You can do some crazy stuff with Major Image. Mages should be able to use 3 things on each finger, and magical combat. Also, you can make a +1,000,000 damage bastard sword. I would hear you, and I'd if it were me, my instinct would be it works for 1 round, and then as soon as an arrow flies through it, it would ruin the illusion. But you could make the argument that depending on the enemy, it might not. They might be completely befuddled by the 3rd level spell, but I don't know. I think that one. I think there is room to say it doesn't work. I gave up casting Fireball to cast this. I can't make a fog cloud. So you can make a fog cloud, but it's not a real fog cloud is the thing. It's not real. It's fake. And any physical interaction spoils the illusion. Like it's not real. That's the problem. It has limits. It's not like you create an illusion of a fog cloud, therefore everyone has to believe it, especially if you start physically interacting with it. Now, it again, it depends on the enemies you're fighting. So, like, I think against some enemies, you can make a very fair argument that, like, this should totally work, and you should totally bamboozle the enemy, and they should, like, they're just hosed. Like, you get advantage on all attacks against them, they get disadvantage on all attacks against you. Everyone gets foresight. Like, you can make that argument, but it's not. It's not something I would say 100%. It's not something I would say like, oh yeah, like everyone buys this. No, they don't get a chance to counter it. That kind of thing. They can make an investigation check if they want to disbelieve it. It's true. They can. It's true. But all of the illusion spells, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong here. It says it does not hold up to physical interaction. Physical interaction with the image reveals it to be an illusion. That's right there. And like, just because you made something intangible doesn't mean that physical interaction doesn't ruin it. For things can pass through it, right? Yeah, it's not real. It's fog. It's fake fog. Like, it doesn't react like real fog would to physical contact. That's the thing. But I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm saying there's wiggle room to say it wouldn't work. I was joking. The fact that you seriously analyzed it, you just broke me. Thank you, brother. No. I hear you. I hear you that, like, it is a 3rd level spell and you should get something. And against, especially if you're not using it every combat, against some enemies, it should totally work. It should totally work. But if I were your DM and that was the first time that happened, what I would say, this is the advice that I've just been repeating over and over, is I would say, yeah, this works. This works the way you want it to. But be advised that not all some enemies may not be fooled by that. And that's all I would say. And then, like, we could talk about it outside of the session if that wasn't enough. But like, this, like, casting major image is not everyone on my side gets advantage, everyone on the enemy side gets disadvantage. Like, that would be that's what foresight does. That's a 9th level spell. And that's a 1 target. Like, that can't be balanced. Surely we can agree that that's not balanced. If you could just do that reliably, that's the ultimate problem with just saying you can do it. Is if it's balanced, yeah, you can do it, absolutely, 100%. If it's not balanced, though, we got to have a talk, because it will ruin the game if everyone's just constantly doing this and winning and can't and it feels bad to do anything about it. So you should have penny bags full of tablets that have been blessed, which you can each turn choose whether or not to spread on the tablets, being anti-illusory. I think that, so the problem with making anything anti-illusory is that that's not a thing in the game. So if you do that, the player is going to immediately know that you're targeting them. If you're like, oh, you made an illusion, well, it doesn't work. Sorry. they had anti-illusory sword. Yeah, it's a 20-foot cube. They can move out. They can blind the area. They can have blind sight. I don't actually know what they can blind the area means. They can have blind sight. That's not fun. That's the exact same problem as saying they have an anti-illusory sword. Cast darkness. Most monsters can't cast spells, and if we're at the point where we're saying you have to have a caster to challenge the party, then I would absolutely pin that as unbalanced. That is the same problem that Leomund's Tiny Hut has. That is a spell that is not used for shenanigans, but it is absolutely the bane of some DMs out there who, like, I have players that cast Leomund's Tiny Hut. What do I do? Well, you can cast Dispel Magic on it, and that's it. You can do other things, but they won't work. You can cast Dispel Magic, though. So every fight that you want to have that is in the vicinity of a Leomund's Tiny Hut, you have to have someone with Dispel Magic. I don't like that. I don't like that. And they did fix that in the 2024 edition, because Leomund's Tiny Hut now only blocks spells of the 3rd level. Which, when I say they fixed that, they didn't fix that at all. It's still broken, and I hate it, and it's also not here, I guess. But they did recognize that it was a problem. If it were me, I have a much better fix, which is anyone can walk through the tiny hut. It doesn't keep creatures out. Like, it's not here. It's not here in the basic rules, but Leomund Tiny Hut says only people you choose can walk through the barrier. And spells of 3rd level or less can't pass through it. And I said that was my fix. I lied. That's not my fix. That's a really dumb fix. That ruins the spell. What I would say is the sphere should only have like 60 hit points. It should only have X amount of hit points. That way it can be broken by non-spellcasters. Just attack the caster and break my concentration. That's tricky. That's really tricky, because when you're in a cloud, do you know where the creatures inside that cloud are, and do you know who they are? Do you know their identity and where they are? That's not a universal. That's not. There's not. You said yes, but that's actually not a universal answer. Some DMs, if you're invisible, they will just remove the mini from the map, and they'll go, okay, you don't see them anymore. Good luck, have fun. And you might say, like, well, that's not the rules. I mean, they still do it. That's not uncommon at all. And some DMs, they'll leave the mini there, but do you know who is who? So do you know which one is the caster? That is not guaranteed either. It's totally fair that you can still attack the caster at disadvantage, given that the caster is they're like a wizard or something. If they're like, I think only wizards and sorcerers can cast Major Image. So let me just check. This isn't like a bard spell. Oh, it is a bard spell. So bards could theoretically cast this. No, wait, never mind. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Eldritch Knights. Eldritch Knight would not cast this. So just kidding. Never mind. I was gonna say, if an Eldritch Knight did this, you're not breaking their concentration. But who cares? Eldritch Knights don't get this till like level 900. So That's irrelevant. We were playing with sound. I would have had to hide within the cloud to come in. Okay, so if you were if all of the enemies knew exactly where you were, and if they not exactly where, but if they could target you with attacks, even at disadvantage, if they could target you with attacks, I think that's fine. That's fair. I don't think that's super broken, but if you're playing with like, you see a fog cloud, you hear people inside, but you don't know who. Okay, that's pretty rough for the monsters to be dealing with. I think that's, I wouldn't call that balanced. Spread where you have to go to get them blessed, and by who and where you find them in the first place. Also different types of pebbles for different levels of illusion spells. Now we're getting into dark light. Got myself a nice green laboratory book and some uni ball pens. Red, green, blue, purple, and black, and a 0.3-inch uni pin fine line. Next is isometric pad. I had a little trouble following along there, but I just don't like the idea of like illusory, anti-illusory anything, because it's just not in the game. It doesn't. The closest you get to anti-illusions is true sight, and that's like, that's high level stuff. If you're like, here's some peasants, they have true sight. They're not peasants. You're playing a different game if that's the road you're going down. I don't know why I said peasants. I meant bandits. Here's some bandits. They have true sight. Why? What? They better not have true sight. That's bananas. But yeah, my main concern, if it's balanced, do it. Major image, do whatever you want. If it's balanced, I do it. My only concern is balance, and that's only a long-term concern. Like in the moment, if you come up with something cool, I'm happy to rule. Say like, yeah, you can do that this time, but let's be careful. You have 3 screens? Yep. It's true. I have some monitors. So, another question that I have here periodically. I have some optimizers at my table. How do I deal with them? There are 2 dimensions to that question, actually. One is, my table is optimizers. They like to play an optimized game. Everyone is some crazy build, and they're really powerful. And how do I deal with that? And there's a straightforward answer to that. You throw them challenges. You throw them bigger and bigger challenges at them until you properly challenge them. Your goal is it's not easy to do that. It's not like just follow these 5 steps. Just raise the CR by 2, and your players will feel challenged. Your optimized players will feel challenged. It's not that easy. There's going to be some flexibility. There's more of an art to figuring out the balance on the fly, which you're going to have to do. There's no easy formula to follow, unfortunately. So what you do is you make a fight, and it's probably going to be too easy, and that's fine. You let that go. You say, "Whoops." Then you make another fight, and you go through that, and you're like, I better make this harder than the previous fight. And you do, and it might still be too easy. It might be fine. It might be too hard. If it's too easy, you say whoops, and you keep going. You keep making it harder and harder and harder and harder. Eventually, you will nail down the balance. And as long as you're escalating the difficulty of the fights, your players should be on board with we just fought 2 kobolds. Now we're fighting 6 ghasts. Now we're fighting 10 ogres. Like, as long as you're escalating, even if it's too easy, like they should sense that like you're trying, and it's fine. Don't worry about it. Keep working on it. Keep trying to find the balance. You'll get there. If you nail the balance, cool. Keep doing that. relish it because it's really hard to do that consistently. So, when you nail the balance, celebrate. If you make it too hard, you may have to fudge the fight. You may have to pause the game, say, "Whoops, I did it too far. I went too far. Sorry, guys. I'm still working the kinks out." You meant to have a frank conversation with the party, with the players. Sometimes you make the fight too hard, and if it's at risk of destroying the game, you say, "Whoops, please, let's pause. I don't want to destroy this game. My bad. Fix it. Move on." That happens. The more you play, the less will happen. The better you get, the more better you get at pinning down exactly the balance. You eventually figure out that, like, okay, all of the minimum AC in my party is a 26, which is insane. I have figured out how to properly challenge a party with this AC. Now, in the future, when this happens, I know what to do. I don't have to worry. But there's no, like, does your party have AC 26? Use these 6 monsters and you're balanced. Like, there's none of that. Like, there's still going to be some art to the whole process. Say hello to others, yeah, or say yo for me, yo. I said there were 2 dimensions to this problem. Dimension 1 is if the entire party is optimizers, and that's a fine table. That's a fun problem to have. It's a good one. I enjoy it, at least. You may not, and if you don't, okay. Not everyone enjoys everything. But there's another dimension to this problem. What if one of my players is an optimizer and the rest aren't? How do I deal with that? And this is a dramatically harder problem to solve. I'll just say up front that there's a good chance that there is no solution to this problem, because what you've got at your table are 2 different groups of people wanting to play 2 different games, and you may be able to satisfy them both, or you may not. And if you can't, then there is only one solution, unfortunately. It's find a new game or split the group. That's the long and short. But there are like you can try to cater to both sides. I have not actually successfully done that, but perhaps there's a way to say, like, okay, in this fight, first of all, you probably should be upfront with the group. Like, okay, so I'm going to make a fight. I'm going to try and cater it to Optimizer Steve and everyone else at the table. I recognize you're not optimizers, so up front, I'm designing combat with that in mind. So you can give yourself the freedom to be like, okay, here's a big dude. This guy's a challenge. And then the implication is that, okay, the optimizing player should handle that character. And then here's a bunch of like minion dudes. Like they're rough, but like they could also be blown away in a single fireball by optimizer dude. So please don't do that. Deal with the big guy. The implication is please don't do that. Deal with the big guy. Let everyone else deal with the small fries. Maybe you can make that work. I have not made it work, but it's possible. Or if you have a dude who just doesn't know his character and is playing a spellcaster for some reason. That's super common. That's fortunately a different problem. That has a much easier solution, which is please play an easier character, or take that player aside, walk them through their character, give them spell cards. Here you go. Here's some spell cards. Here's some. Here's I don't know. Beyond spell cards, actually, I don't know. That does happen all the time, especially Druid. For some reason, it's Druid. A lot of new players, I know why. I actually know why. It's because a Druid is very flexible, freeform. Like it has a specific flavor. You can turn into animals, which sounds sick. You're a full spellcaster, and there's probably other reasons too that I can't think of off the top of my head. So Druid has a lot of possibilities and a lot of options, and that draws a lot of people to that class. It's not just Druid. Like Cleric has the same problem. Wizard. those players, you can just take them aside, talk to them, teach them. They'll get better. And if they don't get better, suggest that they play a different class. You know, there are other classes that are much easier to pick up. There's nothing intrinsic about a new player has to play a spellcaster. Like, if you're a new player, it's totally fine to play fighter. It's totally fine to play barbarian. It's totally fine to play rogue. It's totally fine to play sorcerer too. Like, sorcerer is actually a pretty simple spellcaster. Maybe bard. I have every new player I've played with who played a bard. They were actually pretty good. I've only had 2 that I can think of off the top of my head, and both of them, they were new, but they had watched D&D before, so I don't know. They were fine though. Yeah. But if you have one optimizer at the table and everyone else is like, or if you have like 5 optimizers at the table and 1 casual player, it's a hard one. That's a hard one, and I'm pretty sure the solution. I shouldn't say pretty sure because I don't actually know. I've never done this successfully, but my best guess as to the solution is to talk to the players outside of the game. Tell them, hey, I'm having difficulty challenging both of you at the same time. I'm going to make combats that I'm going to make a combat group for optimizer to deal with. And I'm going to make a combat group for the non-optimizer to deal with. Please respect that. Hope for the best. If you've got mature players, I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't see why that wouldn't work. I don't like, maybe it ruins the fun. There's no way for me to know that without actually doing it. So that's my guess. It's a hard problem to solve. It's a much easier problem to solve if everyone at the group is the same level of optimization focus. If everyone's on the same page, much easier to solve. Much easier, because then it's just you, the DM. You just need to find the target, the right target, and there is going to be a target. When you've got 2 different groups, an optimizer and a non-optimizer, you have 2 targets, and there's no guarantee that those will ever meet. So you'll never be able to, like, there's no guarantee that you can make a fight that targets them both, because you can either make it too easy for the optimizer or you can make it too hard for the non-optimizer. There's no guarantee that there's like a Goldilocks zone there at all. So you'll find situations where you're just stumped. You're just like, I can't make this fight work. The math is impossible. And unfortunately, sometimes the solution is, well, you either play a different game or you make 2 groups and then go from there. Yeah. Here's a fun question that I get asked too often. Which is better, a sandbox game or a railroad game? It's a common question. It's an understandable question. I get it. I understand it. I don't like it for multiple reasons. Number 1, asking which is better, a sandbox game or a railroad game, is a bit like asking which is better, garlic or cinnamon. Like, there's no objective way to answer that question. Like, it depends on what you're cooking. What kind of game are you making? What's your style? Like, garlic. Yeah. I mean, garlic is objectively better, actually. I did the math. I just didn't want to. It just ruined my analogy, though, to say that out loud. So, mathematically, sandbox is better. Yeah. No. It depends on what kind of game you're making. And I'll just say, before I get into my second point, which my second point is completely to destroy this point, so I'm going to say it real quick. Some DMs are sandbox DMs. Your brain is hardwired that way. You will run a better sandbox game than a railroad. That's just, some DMs are better railroads than sandbox DMs. You'll run a better railroad. I have no idea how to tell which is which, other than go run a game and see what happens. Like, there's no test you can take. Example is the Callisto Protocol, which is an amazing game. I'm not familiar with the Callisto Protocol. Garlic number 10,237. Loose boards number 5,651. 5,651,231. Cinnamon 23,411. Damn. Loose boards, man. Underselling them. You could say that Skyrim is both. Well, that's curious because I would have expected Skyrim to be a sandbox game. Like that's something I'd expect. If you get any of the Elder Scrolls games, I would assume that people would call those sandbox games. Loose boards 5,650,000. $5,651,230 is a lot of money. Too bad for empty paint cans. I just can't. I cannot comment on that. That is too much for me. Yeah, but there's a main quest. How do you define rails? All right, so this is what my second point was going to be, which is that I don't think railroads and sandbox is actually a good metric to judge games by, because it very quickly devolves into people having to identify what actually a sandbox is and what a railroad is, and you very quickly come to the conclusion that these labels don't really serve the purpose of identifying what a good game is. Like, are we talking Quake rails in the eyes? That's the thing. Like, I don't actually know when people say railroad versus sandbox. I don't actually know what people are talking about. I genuinely, like, there's a dozen possibilities they could be talking about, definition-wise, and it's very, very critical to nail that down before you start having an argument with someone about, like, what is a railroad, what is a sandbox. I challenge any of you to first 50 on the edge. I don't follow, but all games are linear in retrospect. Is that true? I can think of at least... Is Skyrim linear? Am I crazy? Have I played Skyrim? I don't actually know. Everything is linear. It's the direction that I chose. I walked in a straight line until I hit a quest, and then I did the quest. This railroad, 10 out of 10. Whatever you do during the game creates a linear story. This is getting existential and philosophical, and I am too much of a sandbox DM to run for my current group. I only run modules for them when I run. Well, here's the thing, though, is like, wait, I'm too much of a sandbox DM to run. But what? I was going to say, like, running modules. There are railroad modules and there are sandbox modules. I don't entirely follow. They don't like options. But so when you say you're a sandbox DM, they get confused and scared. When you're a sandbox DM, you run modules, but like there are some modules that they give you a plot and then they put a map on the table and they say, have fun, you figure out what to do now. I'm not going to tell you jack. I would actually say is that the majority? It might not be the majority, but like Storm King's Thunder, Tomb of Annihilation, Rime of the Frost Maiden. Does Dungeon of the Mad Mage count? Probably not. That one's not a sandbox. Maybe. No, I wouldn't count that as a sandbox. Curse of Strahd? I don't know if that's a sandbox. It kind of opens up into a sandbox, but it doesn't start out as one. Total Annihilation. Total Annihilation is not a D&D game at all. You look like you're having a stroke. I'm not having a stroke. I'm good. That's Baldur's Gate 2. Yeah, I've run Tomb of Annihilation. It's more railroady than me. Tomb of Annihilation is how is that a railroad? See, this is where I get into like, well, what is a railroad and what is a sandbox? Because what I take, the terms make the most sense to me when you're using them to identify a specific game. In particular, when you say like, this game sucked, it was a railroad. That's not saying that railroads suck. That's me saying this game sucked, and by me saying that, you identify exactly why it sucked, why I didn't like it, because I felt like I had no agency. Like that, I feel like everyone universally understands that. If someone says this game sucks, it's too much of a railroad, you understand why. But if you say this game was awesome, it's a railroad, nobody understands what you're talking about if you say that. You don't have a lot of options other than wander aimlessly through the jungle until you stumble upon a clue. Isn't that what a sandbox is? There's not much to do other than explore. What would be needed to be added to make it more sandboxy? That's what I thought a sandbox was. Other things to do, because there's like, not to spoil the adventure too much, but there are many directions you can go to get to where you need to go. Like, you can just literally wander the jungle and accomplish nothing. It's true. There is a lot of dead space in that game. I won't say that it's a sandbox with a lot of sand in it, but at the same time, you start out, you get a map, and the map is mostly empty, and you're like, okay, where do you go? Right, but all just points of light. At some point, like, you're describing a sandbox, like, you're describing a bad sandbox, though. Like, is that a railroad? Because I don't think that qualifies as, like, a railroad, to me, means that characters don't have agency to change the story, to do what they want to do. And that doesn't mean that, like, any adventure with a singular any adventure with a main quest automatically isn't a sandbox. I don't think that's true. If the main quest is like, stop this bad guy, but they're not doing anything. They're not like, you don't have to react to them in any way. They're just there. Like, there's a portal, you need to close it. Bad things are happening. That doesn't automatically mean the game is not a sandbox. It's definitely not a railroad, but it's definitely not a sandbox with a lot of sand, as you put it. That is the ultimate point that I was trying to drive to, is that railroad versus sandbox is not a dichotomy. It's not a sliding scale. It's not a dichotomy. A railroad is a specific type of game, and a sandbox is a specific type of game, and they do not express all possible games. So when someone asks, sandbox or railroad, I say, no, just do a good game. Like, do both. Like, whatever you're good at, do that. That is my ultimate advice. A sandbox, I shouldn't start with sandbox. A railroad, I think, when you refer to a railroad, the general agreement is that it's a linear story. You probably don't have agency to do much to that story that the DM didn't pre-plan out. That is not, when I say I'm too much of a sandbox DM, I throw much sand at the player's eyes and make them blind. Okay, that's that's powerful. I think that might be a different kind of sandbox than what most folks are talking about when they're talking about a sandbox. Or maybe it's exactly the same thing, and you're just ahead of the curve. Because I would say that I'm not a sandbox player. I don't like. I shouldn't say that. What I don't like is being put in a world and being told you can do anything, go nuts. Because what I'll say is, can we play a game? And that's not fair. That's not a fair thing to say to the DM. But that is my instinctual, like, I'm here to play. I'm not here to drive. That is me. I know there are lots of players out there who love sandboxes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I gotta have some pull in my game, and I like to know that it's going somewhere. But also, what I find is that sandboxes work best when you give a lot of information. When you put a lot of sand in the box, when you have a lot of stuff planned out for the players to interact with. And what I often find, and this could just be like, because I haven't played at a good sandbox yet, but what I often find is that in a sandbox game, there's less planned than I think there needs to be. So it often feels like the DM is expecting me to make something happen that I'm supposed to be the one creating content out of just some random things that have been slapped together on it. Like, here's a town. There's 18 buildings in this town. Each one of these buildings has been detailed down to every 5 foot square. I'm supposed to figure out how to make that exciting. And like, I have never been at a sandbox table where the DM was like, okay, they've never said that explicitly. They've just assumed that, and they put me in the world, and I'm just like, I exist. Like, I got nothing. Like, should I just start breaking into buildings? I don't know what to do. I don't entirely know where I was going with that, but what was I talking about? We need the train level, Not the choo-choos. What? Oh, unless you're playing the Rainbow level in Super Mario Kart. Rails without sand can't exist. In my Waterdeep game, they had clear goals, but not clear ways to accomplish them, and the game fizzled out. If you have clear goals, I think that's fine. I don't think that's a problem of, like... I would not diagnose that as a problem of, like, well, you're a sandbox DM, and they didn't appreciate that. If you put the goal there, and the players are like, I don't care. Why are they at the table? What did they come through? Are we playing D&D, or are we just eating, like... We could load up Minecraft. We could play Minecraft instead, guys, if you'd rather do that. We don't have to play D&D or Overwatch or whatever. We can like, the assumption is that if you're playing D&D, the players want to play D&D. If they don't want to play D&D, you don't have to play it. You can play some. There's other ways to have fun. You shouldn't force yourself to play the game. But what happens was they got revenge on a guy who had killed one of the party, and then they basically said, this feels like a satisfactory ending to the game. Let's do a new one. That really screams to me that they didn't actually want to play D&D. Especially if you put the goal out there that, like, here's a goal. You clearly haven't done it yet because you haven't met the goal. Like, you just killed a dude. You want to end there? If the party says, let's end here, that screams to me, actually, I would rather play something else. Which I've played with people like that. It sucks. It hurts. And just find it. There are tables out there where everyone wants to play, and I highly endorse finding players who fit your vibe. No, they wanted to play D&D. They just wanted the path forward to be clear. They just wanted to go from encounter to encounter. Okay. It's sure. I don't have experience with that, so I believe you. I don't know what to say other than that sucks. And yeah. Yeah, basically. Because it's one thing if the players are like, I'm frustrated with the game, and especially if they say that out of between sessions where they're like, I don't really know what we're doing. I feel lost and confused. I'm not having fun. If they say that out of the game, and you're like, okay, well, my hands are tied. I guess I have to introduce more hooks to get the players playing. That's fair. But if they say, let's end the game here, that That's a gut punch. That's a gut punch. That is that's not good. So I run modules and I stick to the modules and it works. If it works. I'm surprised that is the solution. But yeah. There are a lot of players out there. They all have a lot of different preferences. And part of being a good DM is catering to those preferences and finding a way to make it fun for you to do that as well. Modules make the way forward clear every time. Go here, do this, find this. I have the opposite experience, but I have already said that. Like, Tomb of Annihilation was a lot of wandering around and being lost. Storm King's Thunder, same biz, same. We're wandering around. I don't know what we're doing. I'm pretty sure that at some point we got off track and then had to get pulled back on track. I don't know what the book says, but Rime of the Frost Maiden. I'm pretty sure the DM put us on rails that were not in the book. I'm pretty sure, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure we got put on rails on that adventure pretty early on because we were in a town that I can't remember the name of, and the DM was like, "Hey, guess what? You're going to this tribe next." Cool, great. I'm very certain that's not what that is the least artful way I've ever been told that's how that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure the book does not say literally that. So, I don't know. How about a spell that makes you forget how to use magic? Rokomon, play Total Annihilation, top up your water. Yeah, I am out of water. Gotta get more. This is a big mug. I shouldn't be I shouldn't be drinking that much water that fast. How about a spell that makes you forget how to use magic? There is a spell that does that. It's called the Befuddlement spell. Cool, it's not here, but trust me, it makes you unable to cast spells. And in previous editions, it was called Feeble Mind. Have you played Waterdeep? Do you mind if I spoil some of what I did? I have not played Waterdeep, but I do not mind spoilers at all. Go ahead. I've played Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is not a module I would recommend, but I am familiar with it. Oh, and I do know bits and pieces of Waterdeep, so I haven't played in it, but I'm familiar with it. Especially I think Chapter 1 has a pretty deadly fight for any module. Like it's like weirdly deadly. Because I hear a lot of complaints about that one. Get into what, man? Other brother? So there's this artifact that the players are supposed to find to start the whole quest, and there's the one major villain who's interested in it. I made it so all four were interested in it. Aha! I agree with that change, by the way. It does not make any sense to me to... Like, we wrote all this content, and we're only going to use a quarter of it. Each had a key to completing the artifact, and the players had to heist the artifacts, because it's called Dragon Heist. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. I mean, this sounds good so far. So they succeed 3 times, fail on the 4th, and the 4th guy retreats into his lair. Oh, so they actually got really far into it then. Okay. I mean, presumably they got pretty deep into the game by that point, especially if you're doing all four heists or all four villains. What about a spell that takes 3 turns to do and permanently deletes all your spells? An Archmage spell. I don't really know who you would cast that on. Because you're usually fighting to the death. So killing the enemy also deletes all of their spells. So, you know. I guess it would be to like you delete their spells just as a flex right before you kill them. It's casted on all. What? So it would affect your allies too? I basically implied that they'll fail if they try to heist the lair directly, and I give them some powerful allies to come up with a plan. That sounds good. That sounds perfectly on track. It's casted on all, yeah, everything. Why would you cast that? You just don't like magic? That sounds like a spell that a villain would learn, and then the entire point of the campaign is to stop the villain from casting that spell. Leroy. That's not a spell you would cast in combat for sure. One of my plans is to talk to the allies and build up a bunch of side quests that they can do to prepare, but they just didn't. Oh, okay. So it sounds like they had direction. They just didn't want to take it. Which, 100% gut punch. Gut punch. Because it's like when you're looking back as a DM and going, what did I do wrong? How can I do better? Like, do I add more NPCs? Do I add more hooks? Like, that doesn't seem. Do I need to give them more gold? Do I need to level them up more? I don't. It's kind of hard to figure out like what went wrong there. Did they just not want to play D&D anymore? Like, I don't know. Only you would know. I imagine that's really hard to. The NPCs just didn't come up with a plan for them. I don't think that's like. I mean, you're playing a hardcover, and presumably the hardcover doesn't come up with a plan for them. If I had done that, they would have continued playing. I'm 90% sure. Sure, but like if you play another if you play another hardcover, and that hardcover presents them with a challenge and an NPC, and the NPC doesn't say anything in the hardcover, but are you going to make the NPC come up with a plan anyway? Like in all future, we were way off book at this point. Oh, okay. Never mind then. Never mind. Water, get it? I'm okay. I'm not that thirsty. But like the thing is like what lesson like do you just have NPCs come up with plans now from now on and everyone's happy? Or is there something more complicated going on in your next game? The book is like, here's 10 encounters you can do before they get to the vault. Really? That's silly. It doesn't build like a structure to them at all. It's super linear. Okay. Well, I will say none of the books I would run straight without changes. None of them. I don't like any of them. Run unchanged. I would make changes to every single campaign book that I've read from Wizards of the Coast, because usually there's not enough content. There's just straight up not enough content in them to properly run like a world. There's not enough connective tissue. There's also not enough parts where it's important that you know X as you're running this scene. Like there's a part in Tomb of Annihilation that's like you need to get a letter that proves that you're allowed to be an adventurer here. I don't remember what it's called. I also know that they don't explain what that letter is anywhere in that section. You have to go somewhere else in the book to figure out that that's even a thing, where you buy them, how you do the proof. It's like in a different city. Like, if you don't read the entire book before you run the game, you just don't know. You just don't know. You're just stuck. You're just like, this NPC says you need to have a letter of proof to do adventuring, and it's like, where am I? What does that mean? Like, if the party asks that NPC, what do you mean? You the DM are completely stuck. You're like, did I just say that? I don't know what that means either. Like, why would you need proof to go in a jungle? There's no one in the like it's a jungle. You don't need a permit. Are they called permits? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, fully endorse changing the book. Totally not surprised that the book needs to be changed. And that sucks. It sucks. It sucks that fell apart. But oh, water. Get it. I'm on the gin. I don't have enough. You can't get booze after 10 p.m. I'm a Welshman, you know. Yep. The other game that fell apart was Blades, but I've run Blades with other groups and have been very successful. Blades, I can understand falling apart because I have a problem with all Powered by the Apocalypse games, which I'm going to include Blades in, even though Blades it's its own engine. But the problem with those games is they don't really have a structure to keep them held together long term. They work great for about 10 sessions, and then you're like, cool, we've improvised the world, and now we're still improvising. Like, we've already got we don't need to improvise. Like, can we like every like, I've played Dungeon World, I've played Monster of the Week, we played Blades in the Dark, and it's fun. And then you're like, can we do something else? And the DM imagination is starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel, and everyone wants to, like, I want to do something other than heist. How do we do that, game? And the game is like, go to free play and stop. You don't get to relieve stress anymore. You don't get reward. Like, it's all free form, and good luck, have fun. And it's like, okay. Game suddenly loses steam and everyone stops having fun. Oh yeah, I've reached 10 to 15 sessions max with Blades, but this one linear wanting group, it fell apart in 2 sessions. Oh, 2 sessions. Okay, that's a proper collapse. Fair. Did they just not like the game? Because that can totally happen. It's a very specific setting, and the mechanics are also they're very baked into the setting. So if you don't like the setting, the mechanics are going to sting. It was the same problem. I told them to come up with a plan and they just refused. That's a much bigger problem than Blades. That's a much bigger problem than Blades, because Blades is very much like that is one thing I enjoy about Blades is like, okay, it's time for a heist. You tell me what the plan is. I'm going to do this now. And then the players have to come up with their attack, or not their attack, but like their how they are going to do the heist, and attacking might be one of them, and then they have to give you a point of attack, and it's like, cool. If the players aren't willing to do that, then this game doesn't work. That's like then I might as well just play with myself. So yeah, I that absolutely, that is a problem. I would put that on the players. They were like, we'll smuggle some people from this city to another. And I was like, great, what are you doing? They were like, we're going to sail down there and smuggle them. Trust in their flashbacks. It was a mistake. Yeah, no, I get that, because I completely can relate to your players, because the first time we played Blades in the Dark, the GM was like, so what are you guys doing? We would like to smuggle the cargo through the trains. And the DM was like, okay, I don't, like, you just do that. I don't understand. Did we break the game? What is why can't you just do that? And it took us a hot minute to actually look up and figure out, based on playthroughs from John Harper that are online somewhere, and be like, oh, we're actually playing this game wrong. Actually, you're supposed to say what you'd like to do, and then we start out. We play the first complication. It's up to the DM to put a complication, but that was on us. Like we were playing the game wrong. We were like, you can't just. Can we just win like immediately? Why don't we just do that? I guess that's not the same problem. They just ran into a check at the port and they folded. Okay, that's definitely not the same problem then. Never mind. I am way off base. They folded? Did they quit mid-session? Or did they just did things just go pear-shaped? Because those are both bad, but oh, pretty much. Wow. Okay. Brutal. That's brutal. I don't know what lessons you can take away as a DM from that. I don't think there are any. Sometimes it just be like that. Is that group? Are you still playing with that group? Did they find another game? Don't require that group to plan. If that's what it takes. Drinking water constantly is massively important for health. Not constantly. Like, I gotta be able to, like, I can go an hour without water. It's a river flowing through you. I'm playing with 2 of the players from that group and a couple of others, new ones. Hopefully y'all are having fun now that that's been figured out. That is part of being a DM. Figuring out what your players enjoy. Your weird players and their weird tastes. I even ran Blades in the Dark for the new group again, and it went well. That is awesome, man. Blades is very hit and miss, I find. So it's good that they enjoyed it. It's a good game. It's very specific, though. So it wouldn't surprise me if people play it and they're like, not for me. That's fair. I get it. I love Blades. Fits my DMing style. Oh yeah. I love story games. Story games. Playing Dungeon World for the first time was a big awakening for me as a DM, because it introduced me to the idea of, like, you can just narrate what happens. You don't have, like, I rolled a big number. I rolled a 9 on a 2d6. Actually, 9's not that great. I rolled 11 on 2d6, so a good thing happens. Like, it doesn't have to be. I don't have to look at my notes and be like, all right, they're at a door and they rolled an 11, so I I didn't put any treasure here. There's still a creature on the other side of the door. I put that there. So like I don't know how to make this 11 work. Like in Dungeon World, you can just be like, cool, you open the door. There was a creature there. It's gone now. There was never a creature there. Never existed. Also, like treasure. I didn't plan it, but there's treasure there now. Deal with it. Like, okay, great. Maybe that's not a good example, but you can improvise consequences. You could take that style to D&D just fine. You could take that to any game just fine. It's great. It's a lovely style. You don't have to plan the world out to resolve consequences. You can just do it on the fly. I also really appreciate, I don't think this is true for Blades, but in Dungeon World and in Blades in Powered by the Apocalypse games, you're not supposed to prep the first session. You're supposed to come to the table a blank slate. And that's an amazing requirement because it teaches the DM, first of all, a lot of new DMs get it in their head that in order to play a game, I need to prep the entire world first. I need to prep every single possibility that these players can run across before I can even think about DMing. Like I need to bake the entire world before I can even start session 1. Now that's wrong. That's completely wrong. If you're a new player, you do not need to do that. Do not plan. Do not read the entire book. Do not do not plan 20 sessions out before you even consider starting to get players. You can come to the table with literally nothing. And in Powered by Apocalypse games, you're required to do that. You cannot prep. You are not supposed to prep. The game, I mean, if you do it, you could make it work, but you do run into friction with the game because part of character creation is also informing you, the DM, what kind of game am I making? So, like, if one player makes a paladin and they're like, I am an exiled paladin and my mentor is hunting for me. Well, hopefully, if you prepped, you probably didn't prep a mentor of the exiled paladin hunting them, because that's in the game now, and there's a villain. Like, cool, great. You didn't need to do that. You just take the win. Take the free villain and make that your villain, and you're going to make a great game out of that. That's like the Powered by the Apocalypse games teach you that naturally. It doesn't even you can't actively not learn that. You have to resist learning that if you don't want to learn that lesson. And you can take that lesson and you can apply it to any game, any tabletop game. You can go into a D&D game with zero prep. And it works. It works great, more or less. I really like Blades, the flashback system, and clocks. Clocks are something. If you're a DM, play Blades in the Dark, steal clocks, use that in D&D. It's just a universal great system that's awesome, amazing, the best. It's the best system. It belongs in every TTRPG. Clocks are the best. Flashbacks are really great. You can't take those. You can't put them in every system, unfortunately. It is something that is baked into the stress system, and I don't know how to bring that into D&D, but I would if I could. But clocks, and for people who haven't played Blades, let me explain clocks. Clocks are a circle that you draw, and then you segment the circle depending on what you're setting up the clock for. If you're like, I would like to set up a thing that in 12 turns, I shouldn't say turns, in 12 segments, a bad thing happens. In 12 segments, the bad guy unlocks the ritual of destroy all magic. Okay? You draw a circle, you segment it into 12 parts, and then anytime you need to mark consequences. Something bad happens and you don't know what. Mark the clock. Put a segment in the clock. Tick, tick, tick. And this is a public clock. Everyone can see this happening. Everyone can see that like bad thing happens. Tick, 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 tick. Anytime there are consequences. It's entirely possible to turn that clock back if you do something that merits that. Like we built a pillar that reinforces magic in the world. Okay, mark that clock back. 3 ticks. Good job, guys. You've delayed the enough. You've delayed the end of the campaign. That's it. The clocks. Use them. Use them everywhere. They belong in every game. They're amazing. What am I talking about? I was talking about sandboxes and railroads. I forgot what I was talking about. My ultimate point about sandbox and railroads was sandboxes and railroads are not useful labels. And you should, man, no one's doing prep, world building or design right now. No one is doing prep. Is that true? Hi. But anyway, I lost it again. Sandbox or railroad? Sandbox and railroad is not a useful label. Don't label your game by sandbox or railroad. Railroad is a very specific type of game that is often used pejoratively. Think instead of that, think about how do you want your game to be linear or non-linear? Do you want your game to be more hands-on or hands-off with what the player's goal is? Do you want your game to be do you want to have more or less of an idea of what is happening in the game? Improv versus prep. That's what I mean. Do you want to improv what's happening in the game, or do you want to prepare what's happening in the game more? And that's not a sliding scale either. You can do both, but which do you flourish in better? I think those are better things to consider than I'm a sandbox DM, I'm a railroad DM. I like nonlinear stories. I like linear stories. I like to prepare my world. I like to improv. And there's no right answer to that. It depends on your players. It depends on your players, and it depends on you, the DM's talents. What are you good at? Railroad, I'd consider as a roller coaster. You can't get off of it but enjoy the ride. That's railroad as I define it. Think of it as like a linear path. There's nothing wrong with the linear path. There's nothing wrong with a non-linear path. I will say a non-linear path takes more work, but it's oftentimes worth the work. But that doesn't mean you have to do it. Sandbox is when you have the ability to play the DM. To play the DM? I don't follow what play the DM means. To change the game. When I see a sandbox as when you basically the DM has given you permission to do anything, basically. You're not a god, I am. I mean, the players are still the players in both a sandbox and a railroad. So, like, presumably, even in a railroad, the players have the ability to make decisions about things on the tracks. Even if they can't jump the tracks and be like, we were going to go to the city, but instead I would like to go into the ocean, sail off, and we're going to become explorers, and we're going to go looking for trade routes, and we're going to be fishing and looking for exotic fish. You can do that in a sandbox, right? I don't actually know if that if you're allowed to block that even in a sandbox game, but then we start again, don't we? There will be blood. Anyway, I don't know how much more I can add to that question. I have time to answer one more question, and then I must bounce. But this is a distressingly common question. How do you deal with problem players? And these are players that they're not like, well, they want to play the game one way and I want to play the game another way. And they're not players that are, I'm a new player and I'm constantly making mistakes. That's not what a problem player is. A problem player is someone who is actively damaging to the social connections of the game. They're trolling, I guess. Damn, I wanted the last question. Who is your favorite Power Ranger? I don't know. I don't know the Power Rangers. That's not a D&D question. Wait a minute. The last D&D question. You're all welcome to answer question or ask questions. D&D questions. I can answer them as a DM. So if they're a non D&D question, I can make up an answer. But I don't know how useful that is. My best friend has a dream of buying a boat, smash them, surround them with love and damage. What's your favorite Power Rangers favorite D&D class? I mean, it has the word Ranger in it, so obviously the Ranger. Just kidding, it's the Barbarian. Barbarian is 100% the Power Ranger, like 100%. Like, oh, we're going into combat? It's time for me to use a bonus action to get big. And I have superpowers now, and I'm very tough to damage, and it's all powered by emotion, and then after a minute it wears off because I run out of power energy, and like 100% barbarians are Power Rangers. They might as well literally transform when they go into a barbarian rage. What do you think Joan Rudicus's favorite food is? I don't know who that is. And I absolutely don't know their favorite food, but I'm going to say it's chocolate cake. Can't go wrong with that. Barbarian. Transform. Try it the next time you play a barbarian. Give yourself, when you rage, give yourself a command word to rage. See if that isn't, if that doesn't like ruin Barbarian for you forever. It's got to go cry behind the bard when they play Enya for him to go to bed. I don't know. I had a question here. Dealing with problem players. How you deal with problem players? You boot them. If they're a problem, you talk to them, and then if they don't shape up, you boot them. There's no if someone is trolling, if someone is like fighting you running the game, that's not a game problem at all. That's not a problem with the D&D. That's not a problem with tabletop game. Like that any social activity, if you have someone in the group who's being a problem, you talk to them, and if you don't like them, you boot them. And if that's not an option, well, then maybe you disband the group and make a new group without the problem player. But there's no D&D solution to this question. Happy if I've seen you. Nice, bro. Thanks. There's no solution to, that I know of. There's no magic formula that you can do to be like, oh, you want to stab everyone you meet. Every NPC, no matter how friendly, you just want to stab them. Well, you know what? every NPC is now literally invulnerable. Like, that does not solve the problem at all. That does not make the problem player go, oh, well, I guess I should play normal D. I should be a good player now. It doesn't work. There's no in-character solution. There's no in-game solution that you can do to make someone who doesn't want to play with the group play with the group. So if you have to boot someone, that's the time. Problem players come in many varieties, and it's important to note that there's a difference between like someone who's like not fitting in with the table versus someone who is actively trolling. Even if they're not fitting in with the table, that's still worth a conversation. That's still worth figuring things out, but not to the same negative degree as like someone who's, I would like to murder every NPC ever. That's a different problem. Nothing like a good stabbing first thing in the morning. Just do it slowly so you can savor the screams. Yeah. I wasn't using that NPC. It's fine. They weren't important. I'll just put this plot that I had planned somewhere else. Yeah, there's the thing is that kind of stuff. If you leave it unchecked, it will destroy your game. It'll destroy the motivation that you have to be a DM for that game. It'll destroy the enjoyment the players have playing in the game. It's just bad. So there's no boot. I have to return some videotapes. What year is it? We still have videotapes? If you've got a question, a D&D question, or a question that you want me who has no idea about, like, don't expect me to know things that aren't D&D. I can answer them, but I can't guarantee they're correct. But if you have a question about D&D, I know some stuff about that. Feel free to leave them in the comments. Feel free to leave them in the chat. Feel free to, I don't know, broadcast them somehow. Happy to answer them. So I still actually have a lot more questions to ask, but I am out of time. So I will be doing another one of these, but not this next week. So next Tuesday and next Saturday, I will not be streaming at all. I'll be busy in real life. It's crazy. I have to see a man about a horse. I got one. If you got one, go ahead. I've got a few minutes. I don't have enough minutes to ask a full question, but if you got a question, go ahead. Otherwise, yeah. So the next time I'll be streaming is not next Tuesday. The next time I'll be streaming Roll for Question is not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. I would like to stream video games soon, but I can't. I can never commit to that because every time I commit, something comes up and then it just never works out. So hang on. All good. Got a few minutes. Why can't mages wear more than two things? Wear more? What? Mages can wear more than two things. Is this a joke? I don't. Oh, why can't mages wear more than two things? I don't know. Why can't they? Oh, two rings. So they can wear as many rings as they want, but you can only benefit from two rings because I could guess. I don't have a like. There's no official like. Well, magic only works that way because of the magic protons and the magic neutrino. Black holes will cause a hand explosion. There's no good explanation for that. You can wear as many rings as you want, but you can only benefit from 2 rings because the hand can only hold so much magic. What about nose rings? So I have no idea. Why? I have no idea. I think the reason that you can't wear 10 rings is because there's only like 12 rings in the game. And if you're wearing 10 rings, it becomes pretty obvious. Why? Holy crap. It becomes pretty obvious. That is my best guess as to why you can only wear 2 rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And one of them's a ring of 3 wishes. And like... There's only 12 rings, yeah. So I think that's why. Because if you have 10 rings, it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly that there aren't actually not that many rings in the game. That's my guess. But I will point out that... Nope, just kidding. Just kidding. I was going to say, rings need attunement, but actually they don't. Ring of 3 wishes does not. Ring of swimming does not. I will also say, I have never been in a game where the party has had more than 2 rings. Like, completely. Like, it's never... Like, rings are just not that. They don't happen that often. So, I have never run into that problem. So I've never had to have an explanation for why you can't wear 3 rings. Because you got 10 fingers. You know, it makes... And even if you only had 2 fingers, like, I can put 2 rings on a finger. It's not impossible. Like, I have a long finger. I could put 2 rings on this finger, or 3 rings maybe, if they're magic enough. And I've seen fantasy art, exactly that, where someone's wearing like 3 rings on a finger. So you can't tell me that there's not precedent for that somewhere. But yeah, I don't know. All of the good rings require attunement. I say that. I don't think that's actually true. The Ring of Resistance does not. So I'm just going to stop talking because the true thing that is I have not seen a game where you have more than 2 rings, period, in the party. So it's just not something that has come up. If it's come up in your game, you know, wow, A, and B, maybe talk to your DM about wearing 3 rings. Like, can we bend this rule? Because honestly, if the DM awarded those rings, they want you to wear them. So I think there's an argument to be made. But yeah. What about nose rings? I had an answer for that. I mean, they're obviously not in the book here. So there's nothing stopping the DM from inventing a nose ring and letting you wear that, and that would be separate from a ring because it's not on your finger, it's on your nose. And they might say, like, you can only have 1. That's totally fine. There is a magic item, not in here. It might not even be in 5th edition, but there is a magic item in D&D that I don't remember the name of, but it's a necklace that has a hand attached to it, and you can put a ring on that hand. And it counts as an extra ring. And I don't know why this is a thing. It seems weird that the designers would make that. They'd go, you know, we need more necklaces. What about a necklace that lets you wear a ring? Okay. But it exists. So this is not just some arbitrary random thing that the designers of D&D have decided. I mean, it is, but they've put more thought into it than it appears. I got a thread for you. I got a tread for you. Okay. I think there might be a balance argument for, like, you can't wear 2 cloaks. You can't wear 2 necklaces. You can't wear 2 boots. Like I can't. I could, if someone wanted to put on 2 boots, I'd probably say no. You can't do that. You could maybe argue that, well, the boots resize, so wouldn't the second pair of boots resize to fit around the first pair? And I'd be like, okay, but balance reasons, no. There's probably also a balance reason for not being able to wear more than 2 rings. Now, I don't know that that's true, because looking at these rings, like, I don't know. But also, I've never run into a situation where it's come up, so I don't know. I can guess, but I don't know. Check out. Okay. Burial goods. Oh, is that? I should Google that, or put that into YouTube. I will do that. All right. Well, I'm gonna bounce here. I will do that. And then I will bounce here. But thanks everyone for being a part of this and stopping by and asking questions. Even the non D&D questions are fun. The D&D questions are the most fun. But appreciate you all. Thanks for being a part of this. If you've got more questions, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to leave in the chat. I'll see you all next time. Have good games out there, guys. Have fun. Take care.